Hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. How are you doing tonight? I'm doing great. How are you? Excellent. So tonight we're going to be talking about the making of a trader. It's a little bit different than the webinars that we normally do, but this webinar is going to be, it's going to be about an hour. About an hour. And basically, I'm going to go through a variety of different strategies. I'm going to be talking about my journey overall as a trader, how I got here, and then most importantly, how my now team members have really kind of shaped that journey. And so the goal of this presentation is, obviously everybody has a different trading journey. But in sharing mine, my hope is that I can impart a few pieces of wisdom to you, and maybe you can find something that you can relate with or help you. And that'll help you along your own trading journey. So yes, I do have a screen share going. Do we have screens and sound? If you don't have screens or sound, go ahead and make sure you refresh. All right, so there's going to be a lot of different tidbits throughout this. So let's just go ahead and get started. All right, so I'm calling this presentation tonight, The Making of a Trader. All right, so first of all, my name is Danielle. For those of you who haven't met me before, I'm the Director of Options here at Simpler Trading. You might have seen me in a variety of places. I'm a pretty frequent commentator on a variety of networks, but I love trading in pretty much an aggressive directional fashion, trend following most of the time, but I am primarily an options trader. I always like to start off by asking how we've met, or if you're familiar with me. That does help me kind of shape the presentation as I go in my explanation. So I love to hear if you have been on my newsletter. Bad audio. All right, hold on. Is that better? So it sounds like we have some people that can hear. So we have a lot of people in the short interest secrets classes, the newsletter. So the newsletter is a free newsletter, 5startrader.com. You were in my short interest secrets class. Awesome. Finding Phoenix, short squeeze baby. I love it. Newsletter. Okay, great. So there's definitely people from all different places. So you're kind of going to get bits and pieces. Yes, I've had a variety of classes that I've taught on different strategies, and we are going to touch on that. So also, I'm sure that there are those of you who are brand new. Are we out there? You've been reading the newsletter, but you haven't met. You read my section of Mastering the Trade. Awesome. So we have some new folks as well. So welcome, welcome, welcome. The moral of the story is that we are basically on this kind of journey together. Now, I'm going to start off with a picture of me as a child. So how many times have you heard the story or the question, what do you want to be when you grow up? Now, I know that if I went back in time, if I asked my parents, nobody would have ever imagined that I was going to be a trader. Neither would I. And you say you still don't know, Ed, right? So when we ask children what they want to be when they grow up, have you ever noticed that it's always so focused on the job? It's never really focused on what you want out of life. And that's something that I've kind of learned to frame as I've gotten older, and especially with my own son. But I mean, over time, I've had a variety of dreams. I always wanted to be a lawyer. My degree is actually in international law and human rights. I never used that. I wanted to be a teacher as well. I was a teacher for several years. There was a point where I want to be a journalist, an inventor, entrepreneur. But the key point here is that I never wanted to live by anybody else's rules, and I wanted to have a certain amount of freedom. It was that drive for freedom that led me to graduate from college, and I decided to move to the beach. So I went to Central America, Costa Rica, actually. I lived on the beach, lived in a hostel for a while. It was pretty fantastic, and I taught English. Now, what you want and what you search for are kind of two different things, and I'm pretty independent. But I would never say that I imagined ending up as a trader. It turns out, though, that it suits my personality perfectly, and it's the lifestyle that I wanted. Now, here's a couple different personality traits. Do any of these look familiar? For those of you here in the audience tonight, are these traits that you can relate to? Having a clear vision for what you want, having a clear drive and motivation, confidence, the ability to adjust and adapt, that is very, very critical. A commitment to learning, and also interested in learning from role models. All of them, and add patience. Several, but not all. Yes, excellent. Yeah, so I mean, these are some pretty key traits that, I don't know, for me, I guess I've seen in myself, but they were never really listed as far as, hey, do you want to be a nurse when you grow up, or a doctor, or something like that? So something to think about. But it's persistence like this that has allowed me to grow from that little girl to this point in time where I can make trades like this. So of course, this is a trading webinar. We're going to talk a bit about the story, but I do want to show you some trading examples as well. So here's a pin on Tesla where I was able to trade Tesla into about the $700 price point, buying it for $855, selling it for $1730 just in a couple of days, right? Using the butterfly strategy. It's also the persistence that has allowed me to make trades like this, not just once, but over and over again, and be able to grow in my career and do things like appear on CNBC. Now, when we're talking about the making of a trader, I'm pretty sure that I don't just speak for myself when we say that most of us have probably just come across this profession, right? So that's why I want to know, why are you here? And why do you trade? Because for me, this is exactly why I trade. I trade for my son so that I can go where I want when I want to go. I can take my son to New York with me. We can go on a cruise. This is a picture of us in Rockefeller Center. Actually, he had the time of his life at Christmas time in New York, and so did I. But that's why I do this. I also do it because I absolutely love it. There is nothing more that makes me happier when I wake up in the morning and I see that space is up another 21%. That is just what makes my absolute morning. And I do this because not only I love it, but because, yes, I can make money from home, and because I also love that I can have an impact on people like this. So I got this email from Roger who said that he took the Pro Short Interest Secrets class and he made a nice profit on space in 2 days. That is exactly what I want to hear. Now, people ask me all the time, okay? They say, did you go to school for this? Do you have a degree in finance? Did you work for a hedge fund? Literally happens all the time. It's really funny because when CNBC first started interviewing me, they were very confused because they couldn't find me anywhere besides Simpler Trading. And I told them, nope, haven't worked for a hedge fund. I don't have a degree in finance. My degree is in law. I went to the school of Simpler Trading. So let's talk about that now, and I'm going to go back and we're going to talk about how it all began. So at this point, what do? Well, I trade option strategies, right? Calls, puts, credits, debit spreads, butterflies, unbalanced butterflies. I trade a combination of Fibonacci, the squeeze, high short interest, reversion to the mean, hedging, and more. And I also work on building long-term accounts. But this was not how it has always been. Now, I really hate telling this story, but unfortunately, I didn't really think it very clearly when I told it the first couple times. So now I've got to tell it over and over again. I suppose I should be proud of myself the way that I am now, which I am. But, 8 years ago, I was in a pretty tricky spot. It was a spot that my dad, he had always warned me about, okay? My whole life growing up, I was the oldest of 4 kids. He told me, don't ever let anybody support you in this life. Not me, not a husband, nobody. You always have to make sure that you can pay for everything on your own, no matter what. And education is something that no one can take from you because you don't know what's going to happen. Now, of course, I thought that this was super negative, and I thought, well, that's, you have to trust people in this life and everything else. But I went to school, I got my degree, and then I decided I wanted to be a teacher. Things were great. I loved being a teacher. I worked on the beach. This is a picture of me and the other teachers at lunch one day. And things were good. I had a steady job. I had a soon-to-be husband. I was pregnant. I was going to be having my first child. And on my meager teacher's salary, I wasn't really able to contribute to a lot of the bills, right? So my fiance, he paid for the house. He paid for the car. I had some spending money, which was fine. And I thought, well, teaching is a really honorable job, right? I'm doing a good thing. But what ended up happening was not only was I not free, but I ended up trapped in a life that nobody would want. And I had to escape. And there was no way out other than to leave. So I'm going to spare you the gory details, but I ended up with my son, a newborn baby, $800 in 2 suitcases, and that was it. So it was at that moment in time that my dad told me that I should become an options trader. Now, I thought he was completely crazy, and thankfully I listened to him. But if I wouldn't have listened to him, none of this ever would have unfolded. So at this point in time, I mean, it seems so long ago, right? Because this is what I'm doing now. At that time, I was just trying to pay for diapers. I never intended to be a trader. I knew my dad invested. I knew my dad traded options, but honestly, I've always hated math. But I knew that I needed a way out. He told me that he'd been following this guy named John Carter. He said, Danielle, I've never seen anyone trade and multiply money like him. If you can just learn how to do this, you can work from home, but you have to do it the right way. And then you will have a future for you and your son. And so I began. So I began a new search for freedom. And, I hate telling the story. It's important because it's a part of the journey. It doesn't make me unique, right? It doesn't make me special. But the part about it that's important and the reason why I tell it is because things happen throughout the course of life, and education is the key. It's the thing that nobody can change, nobody can take from you, no matter who you marry, no matter who you're with, no matter where you live. That is the goal, and that is the key. And so that's why I still tell this story these years later. So at this point in time, I joined the Simpler Trading chat room, and I listened to John and I listened to Henry. My dad told me to start paper trading with Monopoly money because, like I said, I didn't know anything about trading, and that's what I did. It wasn't easy, and so I kept going. At this point in time, it's pretty crazy because all these years later, I can look at John talking in the chat room, in the pool, on my phone. I can see that setup, and I know I'm going to take it, and boom, I'm in. A couple $1,000s later, that's what I call a win. But it took me a while to get there, right? It's these traders' traits that what I talked about in the beginning of the presentation that were just so important. And one of the most important pieces of this is learning from a role model, starting with my dad and this guy named John Carter. So in the beginning, I mean, there's no way I would have been able to make $5,000 in a day. But I started working from home. I had Leo with me. I didn't have to put him in daycare. And I could pay for the basic things that I needed. And so that's why I kept going. I started with a basic goal of $50 a day when I was 25. After that, I tried to up it to 100, then 100. And now, you know, $1,000 in a day is pretty good regular day. $2,000 or more is excellent. And of course, you have to put in there are going to be days where you're down. The day that it really changed for me that I think was so important was the first time that I cashed out one of Henry's trades and bought myself a much needed iPhone. So I think that was the first time that I was really able to buy something of importance that I actually needed. And it was hard and I struggled and there were ups and downs. But there was only so much I can get online. But the thing that I knew was that I knew that I needed to be able to make money while I was sleeping. And I love this quote because if you can't invest money and make it work for you, then you have to work every single day for every single dollar. And I don't want to say that you don't have to work for trading because of course you do, but this is something that can work for you in the background. And it's not something that you have to clock in and clock out every single day. So it really just begins with the components of a successful trade. And this is something that Henry, John, and the rest of the team have taught. You always need to focus on a setup. You focus on a strategy. You have an entry, a stop, and a profit target. These are pretty key components of an actual trading setup. The reason why we trade options is because options are typically the best way to grow a small account quickly, and they can work in multiple different market conditions. We can use them for beginners as well as advanced traders. But the thing about them is they are leveraged. So you have to be careful and you have to know what you're doing. Options are pretty different from stocks. You know, stocks are not something that I would have been able to trade because I didn't have the amount of capital that would have made any kind of difference in the actual stock market. That's why I used options. I was able to trade directionally and neutrally. Now, because options are a leverage tool, it's really important to be able to use these correctly. Now, at this point in time, I use a variety of different strategies. I use long calls, I use butterflies, I use put credit spreads, and I use unbalanced butterflies. So what kind of strategies do all of you use? Iron condor, same. Flies, excellent. Long calls, all the aboves, diagonals, mostly calls, credit spreads, put credit spreads, covered calls. Awesome, lots. Okay, great. So one of the things that I first started doing when I first started trading was premium selling. Now I remember this was completely crazy when I first learned about options and I learned about how they decayed over time. For somebody like me who was trying to work from home and I was taking care of a newborn, so it was obviously a full-time job just to begin with. Using something that decays over time was absolutely critical. So I like to focus on selling premium, selling put credit spreads in a 30-day time frame because options decay over time. Now, I had to take care of a newborn and I was also working some contract photography jobs because, you know, I was broke. One of my jobs was working for Zillow. I used to walk around, take real estate photography. I had to do every single house on the street. This is one of my maps, by the way. But what I did was I took my laptop, the new one, my new phone, thanks Henry, and my new laptop, and I listened to John and Henry trade throughout the middle of the day. Now, one of the most important lessons that I learned from Henry over that amount of time was how to keep calm and catch the move. This is just an absolutely critical lesson. So Henry and John, I mean, they're basically the dream team, right? And seeing them work together and having the combination of John's, I call it the cowboyness, though I don't think that's a real word, John acting like a cowboy, being a little bit crazy, buying the highs, trading the short squeeze. And then you have Henry's methodical calmness, one of the best technical analysts, the best technical analyst I've ever seen. And adding those two combinations together and learning from them is really what sealed the deal for me. So this is a picture of them at the Christmas party. We have some crazy Christmas parties. They're very awesome and lots of fun. And so for an example, you know, before I started learning from Henry in particular, I'd never traded butterflies. Thought it was too complicated. It was a little bit too crazy. Now I know that it's really the best way to get solid risk reward, especially if you know what you're doing on a technical chart. And most of my trades are butterflies. So it's funny because, I mean, I think this was the first butterfly that I really pinned in a perfect way. So I'd been trading butterflies for a while. Henry had kind of encouraged me to start trading butterflies. He teaches them all the time in his classes in the chat room. And this was the first one that I really held right to the very end of the day on Friday. And that was how I was able to get a trade that started with $1.34 and traded up to $13.39. Now, after that, that lit just another fire underneath me, and I knew I just had to do it over and over and over again. So I've told this story a couple times, but I mean, basically the moral of the story is that Henry is the master of technical analysis. John, he taught both of us how to trade momentum, how to ride the squeeze. And combining these two things together is what has really enabled me to elevate my trading. And so I took that strategy and then I used it with Tesla, and I used it over and 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 over. And I just did it again today. So this is something that, you know, is a pretty critical lesson that's a combination from, you know, two of our key members here. So it was really kind of Henry's take on the butterfly, John's instructions on the high short interest, and then I kind of put those two things together to make a gorgeous Tesla baby. So let's talk about how to pin a butterfly for a minute, because we get these questions all the time. And I want to make sure that I add some really important tidbits in here. So how many of you use butterflies, and how many of you know kind of how to pin them? Me. So basically when I'm saying to pin a butterfly, what I mean is that you want the stock to trade up to the target zone on the Friday expiration. Not sure how to pin them consistently. I have been since you suggested them. Use them. Pinning not reliable. You learned from me. Awesome. So pinning a butterfly is a pretty special thing. To get it to the exact target price on the Friday of expiration. One time I called Thinkorswim when they closed out my trade, and they laughed at me and they said it was an accident. But let me tell you, it's not an accident. It comes with technical analysis. But you know, it comes from this combination: having a directional setup, having a target, identifying high open interest and expected move, and overlapping number 2 and number 3. And that's basically how I'm able to kind of do that. It's that knowledge with the combination of these tidbits that both of these guys have given me over the years that have really just improved my trading style. So here are about 10 things that are very, very important to look at. Can you say that you do any of these 10 things? Not only do we focus on, you know, trading strategies like the squeeze or the short squeeze, but also it's very important to take these psychological lessons. Trading plan, money management rules, emotional swings, nervous, trying to predict rather than react. These are all very important lessons over time. Now, you know, when I first started, I didn't know anything about these psychological lessons. I actually didn't even know what bullish and bearish meant. It's very hilarious, actually. If you look at my notebooks, I have stacks of them. Like I said, I was an English teacher. I didn't know what options or premium was. But after 2 years of listening to John, Henry, Neil, Carolyn very intensely in the trading room, my dad decided that he was going to bring me along to a live trading simpler event. Now, I didn't really know what the event was, but I thought, okay, well, I'll go to Vegas. It was 2 years. My son was 2 years old. I had never left him before. It was a little bit terrifying, but I decided to go to Vegas, and that was where I met John. So that is where it really kind of changed. Now, I would consider myself a beginner when I first came to the mentorship, which is pretty rare because I think that most people who come to the mentorships have been trading for a while. But I mean, for me, someone who was pretty new to it, and I still consider 2 years still pretty new, just based on my knowledge at the time. But for me, as someone coming there and being able to talk to all these people who trade on a very regular basis, it was just so important to me. And it was from them that I was able to glean a lot of knowledge. Not only was I able to glean knowledge, but we started a group back in 2015, which was when I first went to the first event. And from that group, I was able to make some of the best friends that I still have today. So we were able to do live events on a regular basis. And this is also from the poker tournament. So I actually won the poker tournament, but employees aren't allowed to win. So this lucky guy right here got the second place and got to win in the poker tournament that we had. That was a lot of fun. So before I started coming to the events, I mean, basically what I did was I was using my 7 stocks to success method. This was how I started as a trader. I picked 7 trending stocks. Even though I didn't really know what a trend was, I was looking for a basic pattern, and I was selling put credit spreads out of the money put credit spreads, okay? So why did I do this? I did this because I learned their personality. I was getting to know them. I was trading the same ticker over and over again. I was trying to figure out how it normally moves, and I was selling premium outside of those zones. And I was doing that while I took care of my baby. Now, after a while, I really wanted more, okay? I was fine with the status quo. I was good with out of the money put credit spreads. But for people who normally trade out of the money put credit spreads, you know that there's only so much you can make with that, right? And I remember the exact moment that I decided that I wanted more. Now, it was only about 4 weeks after I had made that trade. Well, actually, Henry made a trade and I had followed along on it, and I was able to cash out and buy myself a new phone. But it was about 4 weeks after that that John perfectly called a market correction, and it was on my birthday. Now, I had no idea what he was talking about, put call ratio, something like that. I had no idea, but I went along with it. And it was in that moment in time that I realized the benefit of SPY puts and understanding different market scenarios. At that moment in time, I had only previously sold bullish put credit spreads, and I had really avoided the downside. And so it was in that moment where we got this big windfall with these SPY puts that I decided, you know what, I really need to improve my knowledge, and I really need to learn more about this. So, after that point, it really just, after this point, I really started focusing a little bit more on Fibonacci. And that was something that John had used to identify his targets. Fibonacci analysis is very important in trading. It really helps to identify your trade setups, have your entry points, make systematic profit targets, and have unquestionable stop zones, which is something that I needed so critically. It was something that I had previously always avoided, but once I came in person, I was able to learn it in a far better condition. So number one, I mean, when you're looking for a Fibonacci extension target, it really just has 2 points. What you're trying to do is you want to identify a previous high, and then you want to mark your most recent low. You use those 2 levels to project to identify your profit target. So this was something that was very, very simple, that I was something to glean kind of after the fact. So before it all changed, when it changed was really right around the time where I went to Vegas. I had made some money. I was paying my bills. I wasn't completely broke. I wasn't homeless anymore. That was awesome. Um, and I tried to explain to people that I had a job, though nobody believed me. A trader? What? Happened all the time, right? I had gotten a taste. I'd gotten a taste. I'd seen the team in person. I knew that there were real people doing real things on a day-to-day basis, and I wanted to do more of that. So it was, by my estimates, and this is something I'm just honestly gauging, but I felt like that one weekend in Vegas set me forward 6 months in time. And it was really because I had so many questions. They can tell you all about that. But it was something that was easier for me to ask, talk, and collaborate in person. And I knew after that event that I had to go back. I remember in particular a question that I had asked John. I asked John at that time, how can you tell which direction the squeeze is going to fire? How many people have asked this question? We get this question all the time, right? It looks like it's going to fire to the downside. Then it turns around and flips to the upside. Well, yeah, me. Yep. It's one of the top 10 questions I get now. Well, I'm going to go through that right now for you. because I know for me, it was very, very confusing. So here's a good picture of Microsoft. I like to use Microsoft as an example because it's a great trending chart. Now, right here, do you see how you were up at a high and then you start going into a squeeze? So your squeeze is when your green switches over, mine is white. This is the Squeeze Pro. Switches over to white or switches over to red. That's when you're going into a squeeze. So I would always get confused because it would pull back and I would think, oh my gosh, I see some red down here. It's going to go to the downside. I should short it, right? And it was just such a simple thing that I asked him this, and of course he looked at me and he was so nice. He gave me like a little look of disbelief. Like he's answered it so many times, but he told me, Danielle, that's what it does. That's what consolidation is. It pulls back because it's going into consolidation and then it takes off. This is what we like to call the slingshot squeeze. And so it was in that moment that I understood, all right, well, here's a couple very important key factors of the squeeze. Tickers pull back when they're going into a squeeze because that's what they do. The squeeze is identifying consolidation. To consolidate, a ticker has to pull back. It can't really consolidate as it's going higher. That doesn't really make sense, right? And then pulling back doesn't mean that it's firing to the downside. It's just doing what it needs to do. And I think the most important part is that the squeeze typically fires in the direction of the trend. Now, obviously, you're going to have some that are going to fire the opposite direction, but 3 out of 4 times, at least, when you have a strong ticker like something like Visa or Microsoft that's pulling back as it's into the squeeze, it's typically going to release that pressure in the direction of the trend. How do the black dots work in a squeeze? So John actually has his as black dots. I find it really difficult to see, so I changed mine to white, but it's the exact same thing. So it's when you're pulling back, you have white dots or the black dots, and then boom, it keeps going. Then it goes off to Never Never Land. So Vegas was a success, and I knew I still had a long way to go, and I planned for my return. I took the workbook that they made. It had this really awesome workbook. It had about 5 different classes in it, and I planned for my return. I decided to quit my photography jobs and dedicate myself full-time to trading. Now, this is probably a little bit crazy, but it was something that I decided I was going to do, and I was not going to give up. So when I heard about the next simpler event in Austin, I knew I had to be there. That's a picture of me actually working with Carolyn in the office. I was still pretty broke, but I did figure out a way to make it work. And honestly, I can say that that's really when everything clicked. I don't know if it was working in a group of people. There's me right there with my dad also. I don't know if it was working in a group of people, but it was just something about me that changed. One of my favorite things was seeing the collaboration between traders. So something that we don't really have in the trading room is we're always collaborating behind the scenes, but not really right like this up on stage. So one of my favorite things was during the sessions, we have two traders working together, kind of going back and forth, bouncing ideas off each other. And John is going to say, I'm going to buy the highs right here. And Henry will say, no, it's at a Fibonacci extension. And then everybody can learn from that. And it's really awesome. So one of the most important things that happened was meeting Carolyn. So the first time I made the trip, I didn't actually meet Carolyn. The second time I did. So I was at the event. I was talking to Carolyn. I was telling her I was 2.5 years into trading. I really didn't think I was going to be able to make it work. And she told me, Danielle, this is not that difficult. I'm a high school dropout. If I can do it, you can do it. And she sat me down and she showed me how this all works. Now, it's pretty crazy because these years later, now, we teach classes together. She's one of my primary mentors, and I do Fibonacci every single day, all the time. At the time, it just seemed like a pretty crazy endeavor, but it's really not. It's just basic technical analysis, and it works. Now, in addition to that, psychology, definitely one of the most important aspects of trading, and one of the other lessons that John always likes to focus on is going to be life lessons. So one of my favorite events is going through poker tournaments. We love to do this Texas Hold'em poker tournament. Darrell and Henry both are pretty good at the card games, but the most important part here is that there are so many parallels with trading and learning how to manage your money, and that's something that we've always focused on and honed. So, I mean, it's kind of crazy because over the course of it's been almost 8 years now. But over the course of the last 8 years, this is basically how I have changed and melded and adjusted my strategies. So I started off with a 7 stocks to success method. I focused on selling put credit spreads on a regular basis with a calendar. After that, I advanced to what I call the 5-star method. So this is basically the core of my strategy, where I primarily focus on selling at the money put credit spreads with a 1-to-1 risk reward ratio. And I do this in addition to the trend. I like to hone my pullback buy entries. And it's really just based on the combination of the directional trend following strategy. It's based on a combination of the squeeze of technical analysis coupled with Fibonacci. And so, whereas this strategy right here was focused on selling out of the money spreads, over time, what I did was I adjusted that and I sold them at the money. What I was able to do when I did that was I was able to make more money. Okay. I was able to not only hone my strategy, but I was able to make more money. After that, what I did was I added in long calls. So instead of just selling spreads out here, now I'm selling them at the money and I'm adding long calls into this strategy. So that was really how I was able to build on that. So, I mean, honestly, it's all about this combination. Traders working together, seeing what works for one person. Maybe something works for you, maybe it doesn't, but talking about it and seeing what works and putting it all together into a key strategy. So John laughed really hard because we went back to Vegas last year, and I made him take a picture with me in the exact same spot where I first met him so I could have a before and after picture. He laughed really hard. But that's my dad and John and I 4 years later, after this entire thing began. So it was about 6 years after 6.5 years after I first started trading, but 4 years after I had actually come and kind of met the team. So now at this point, I mean, obviously I'm on the stage, which is pretty funny, especially for my dad. But it's been a pretty crazy journey, and I would never have made it here without all of the collaboration and without the team and without coming together at these events. And I mean, like you're saying, Ed, see, you're still teaching. I am a teacher. I love teaching. I've always been a teacher at heart. It's something that's really important to me. And I never ever would have imagined that I would have ended up trading and teaching trading. But as it turns out, my background in trading is something that, or my background in teaching is something that has immensely helped me throughout my journey as a trader. And so that's why I like to, come share my story, break this down, and show you, hey, this is where I started. After that, then I added some relative strength buys. In the beginning, when I was focusing on just basic technical analysis and a chart pattern, I didn't know about the squeeze. I didn't know about high short interest. I didn't know about relative strength. But over time, these are things that I added in. And so, relative strength was something really important that I added. Trading butterflies, like I explained earlier, was something really important that I added. And now I'm trading a lot of short squeezes. So, I mean, it all started right here. It started with my goal. It was to take care of my son. I was not going to let anybody control me, and I was not going to let anybody tell me what I could or could not do. And I wanted to make sure that I could take care of my son by myself without input from anyone else. That's what I wanted, and that's exactly what I got. Not only did I get that, but I got far more than I ever dreamed after starting on this crazy journey. So that's why, I'm here telling you the story tonight, because it's just crazy, honestly. So I've always been a teacher. I'm still a teacher, but now I'm a trader. And at this point, trading is my life. So I love talking trading. I love being in the trading room. I love doing media and TV. I find it to be just, I don't know. I have a great time doing it. I love it. It's like a pop quiz every day. I love writing the newsletter, talking to people on Twitter about different trades. The trading journey, it's not something that's easy. It's definitely an emotional journey. There's been some significant ups and downs. I remember the first time I doubled my account, I went to lose the majority of my profits 3 days later. That was a terrible experience. And, the first time I thought, yes, I'm going to make millions. And then boom, you're right back here. But, the next time I did that, I didn't do that again. And so you're just on this type of crazy journey, and it's something that we're really on together. So I don't know. I told you a little bit about my story. I know that everybody who's here has a different reason for why they're wanting to learn about finance, about investing, about options, about, whatever the case may be. You likely have a variety of different inspirations that are probably different than mine. But the most important part is that I'm inspired, and that's why I do this. So these guys, very important members of our team, John, Bruce, Henry, they're leading the way. And then obviously my little guy right here, his name is Leo, in case you didn't know. So if you haven't gathered, what we're talking about here tonight is the mentorship. So we're talking about my journey, and we're also talking about the mentorship. The mentorship is something that's really important to me. It's important to me because, like I said, it's something that I don't think that I would be here now if I wouldn't have taken the next step. And so that's why I did agree to come here and tell the story and share it with you, because this is an event that we hold usually once a year. And I love it. So there's a picture of me on stage with John, apparently. But typically what we do is we have about 50 people. It depends the size, it's based on the size of the room that we get. This time it's going to be in Austin. The last one that we did, it was in Vegas, but the one in 2020 is going to be in Austin. It's going to be Sunday, April 19th to Tuesday, April 21st. And so basically what it is going to be exactly like I talked about. We have 2 full days. We also have social events in the evening. And so basically we're going to have a combination of traders. So I think John is opening the event. Then after that, Henry and I are going to do a session. After that, Sam and Jack, something like this. You can find all of the information at, let's see, www.simplertrading/mentorship, where it gives you all the details right here. Dun, dun, dun. simplertrading.com/mentorship. And we have, it's really an awesome event because obviously most of us work online. But it's the one time that we're able to come together kind of as a team and collaborate. Something that's really awesome as well is John and Mandy, they always focus on getting us a guest speaker. So we're having a guest speaker named Nick Leeson. He's the original Rogue trader. These guest speakers are just phenomenal coming in. One of the guest speakers that we had in the past, Mark Douglas's wife, she was just absolutely phenomenal. And she explained the most important pieces of trading psychology that made such an impact on me. And even years later, I still remember what she was talking about. So this is basically the outline for the mentorship. If you want to check it out, you can click on that link. And you can also see some testimonials from some pretty happy attendees. Now, what's important right now is, number one, for those of you who had the elite package for my short interest secret class, you get a discount. So I know that there were a ton of you that were in, there's a ton of you that were in my short interest secret class in the elite package. If you had that package, you get a discount on this. So make sure, if you're interested in joining us for the event, you email support@simplertrading.com or call at 512-266-8659. And if you were in that elite package, you can definitely still get the VIP version, and you can also get a major early bird discount. So that's something really important that I wanted to point out, because I know there was a ton of people that were in that package. Also, super excited about the guest speaker. It's going to be very amazing. The guest speakers are always really, really interesting. One thing that is really great about the mentorships as well is that we have a tech table. So I know for me, one of the most important pieces, and it's very funny because it's actually how I met my husband, but when I first started coming to the mentorships, I really struggled with using Thinkorswim. Even just doing very basic things on the charts, like setting up Fibonacci. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a technical person. My skill set comes with languages, some reading patterns, teaching, explaining things to people, and math and all this kind of thing was very difficult for me. And so one of my favorite pieces of the mentorship was being able to kind of sit at the tech table, ask for help, have somebody show me exactly what to do, how to load the indicators in the right way, get my charts all set up. I mean, even just that was worth the entire thing. So we're going to have the tech table that's going to be back. Duncan and Gigi are going to be focusing on answering all of the tech questions, which is going to be absolutely amazing. They've had fantastic reviews for their help in the past. And, you know, the most important part here is that the VIP is awesome because we have a VIP cocktail party. So the first, or I guess the last 15 spots, not the first 15 spots, because we already have a bunch of people signed up. So the next 15 spots, sorry guys, the next 15 spots are going to get VIP priority. So with this is going to come with a VIP lunch with John and Henry, an enhanced swag bag, and front row seating, which is very amazing. So if you would like to sign up or ask me any type of question, you can go to simplertrading.com/mentorship and call our amazing support team at 512-266-8659. So, I mean, this is an amazing event. I'm excited to be there. I'm excited to meet everyone that's coming. Like I said, we have a pretty core group of people that typically come mentorship after mentorship, and then we always have new faces as well. And so it's really fun to see people who have been in years past talk about how they're doing, collaborate some more, and then it's great to meet new people as well. Is this for people at any level? Yes, it's definitely for people at any level. So when I started going, I mean, I had been trading for about 2 years, but I was really only trading, I don't know, maybe 10 hours a week. I wasn't super dedicated at that time. But I was trading regular kind of put credit spreads. When I went, it completely jump started my trading. So we have people all the way from just beginners who are just starting to more advanced traders who really just want to come to these events on a regular basis and meet other people that trade. Because I think that one of the most important factors here is that traders, it's kind of lonely being a trader. You know, now I have the team that I work with. I work with John, I work with Henry, my husband. I can talk to him about trading. But before that, before I came to an event and actually met other traders, I mean, nobody understood what I was doing. I would go on dates and people would say, "What? No, that's not a job. That's ridiculous." My brother and sister, they love to make fun of me. They told me I didn't have a real job and that you know, I needed to go and do something more important with my life on a regular basis, right? Well, who's laughing now, right? But it's it's lonely being a trader, and that's why it's so awesome to be able to come and meet other people that are on the same journey as you. And I think the part that was the most important for me was that I was meeting not only other traders, but I was meeting other traders who were also learning from John, also learning from Henry, also learning from Carolyn. And so that for me was, I think, the most important, because I was able to sit down and say, okay, well, what's working for you? What's not working for you? How are you doing this? And then it was kind of after that we were able to kind of create a Seattle group of different members in the Seattle area, and that we started just meeting up on a regular basis. And so for me, the connections that I found through that event were just something that was just absolutely critical. Thanks for the info, Danielle. Would love to attend, but I will be on Europe on those dates. Awesome, Mark. And it was great to see you too in Seattle. What is there for an accompanying spouse to do? So for an accompanying spouse, first of all, you know, the event is in downtown Austin. And so if your spouse would like to explore Austin throughout the day, they're more than welcome. Also, the evening events are spouses are definitely welcome. So I believe that we have a cocktail party the first night, and then we have a poker tournament the next night. So typically the learning goes from I don't see the exact schedule, but it typically goes from around 9 to 4:30 or 5. And then after that, we have evening events that are a lot of fun. And typically the spouses that come along, they do attend those events. So it's just really, it's right in downtown Austin where the hotel is at. You don't have to stay at the mentorship hotel. However, I do typically tell people that if, you know, you want to hang out with people, that it's a pretty good idea to do that, because there's a bar at the hotel, and typically all the attendees will go to the bar kind of the night before the event starts, and then after these social events are over, and that's where people can kind of collaborate. But that being said, you know, when I first went to the event, I didn't stay there myself. So, I mean, you can stay wherever you would like. But most people do stay at the hotel. Is it at the same hotel, Mandy? It's the AT&T Conference Center. It is. So it's the AT&T Conference Center. It's on the University of Texas campus. It's a nice hotel. I mean, it's a nice hotel. It's not like too expensive. I think it's maybe like $200 a night or something. If you would like to ask about your spouse or adding them or anything like that, you can definitely just email support@simplertrading.com. Also, Mandy, you can see her in the background answering a lot of questions. Mandy handles everything for the event, so you can definitely have Mandy help you with that if you would like. But yeah, I mean, your spouse can definitely attend, you know, the cocktail party and the poker tournament. If you want them to attend like the entire event, then definitely call and ask about that. But for sure, I mean, you can bring a +1 to the social events. So yeah, it's a nice hotel. Let me see if I have a picture. So I like it quite a bit. Here you go, AT&T Conference Center at the University of Texas at Austin. Yeah, it's really nice. It's by the clock tower. Will the sessions be available live online? So usually around at some point we do kind of a live stream. We do typically do that a little bit closer to the event, but I mean, and you definitely can attend it on the live stream, but a lot of the stuff, I mean, it's just a lot of the stuff is, you know, in person focused. So you have, for example, Monday breakout sessions. You have a stock breakout with TG. You have a breakout session with Neil and David. I have my own breakout session. Also, I mean, obviously the events, you cannot attend the poker tournaments online. But we will in the future probably be able to live stream some of these sessions, but it's not going to be like fully inclusive. You will call and get all of this organized. Do you have an options book on the market? I have Mastering the Trade, but I would love to read something more technical. It's so funny that you asked. So I did actually just sign my book deal, and it's coming out next year. It's not going to be as technically based focused. It's going to be more about the psychology of trading. But basically, I mean, Henry and Carolyn are the top two people that I would focus on learning from them, because they're absolutely amazing technical analysts. Carolyn's book, Fibonacci Price Analysis, Carolyn Boroden, would be where both of us have learned a lot of that technical analysis. So I would check out her book. Danielle, are there any courses on how you do butterflies? Yes, absolutely. So you can go to simplertrading.com/store. And within that, you will be able to find a variety of courses that I have done. Let's see if this will load. But you can definitely find courses that I've done. So Henry has taught a class on the unbalanced butterfly, which is how I learned how to do those type of butterflies. And then my butterfly class is right here. It's called the stacked profit strategy. So you can check that out right here. And also, like I said, for those of you who were in the short interest secrets class that just happened, you do have a discount on the mentorship. So, I mean, basically right now, we're focusing on the fact that we have early bird pricing. We only have 15 spots left. The price does go up over time because there's only I think there's about 50 people. There might be enough room for 60 in the room. We just, obviously, like the size of the room, we can't add more people than that. So we typically have about 50 to 60 people that are signed up. And right now we're doing special early bird pricing. But that is going to go up about $1,000 in the next, I don't know exactly when, but in the next couple weeks or so. So if you want to attend, I would definitely recommend signing up sooner rather than later, because there is that early bird pricing. Also, the hotel sells out eventually, so it's a good idea to book a hotel room. And the VIP spots are pretty awesome, because who wouldn't want lunch with John and Henry? So, how is the squeeze measured? So, let's see if I can. If you go to simplertrading.com/support, it'll give you all the details on the technical measurements of a squeeze. Like I said, kind of throughout the presentation, out of everyone on the team, I am the probably least person to explain the math behind it. My skills come with pattern recognition and analysis and teaching. And so I kind of let Eric and John do the math behind the scenes. And for me, I'm all about patterns. So if you want to learn about exactly how the squeeze is made and how it works, I recommend going to simplertrading.com/support and searching the squeeze, and you can learn all about this indicator. You can also, during the trading room sessions, you can ask John, you can also ask Eric, you can ask Darrell, and they can explain all the math behind it. Yeah. What is the best overview courses that incorporates everything that I do? So the difficulty with that is that every strategy, kind of how I went throughout the course of this presentation, one thing leads to another, right? And so the way that I have always taught classes is that I broke them up into a bite-sized chunk. So I have a class focusing on how to buy long calls with the squeeze. I have a class focusing on psychology. I have a class focusing on futures. Because I think it's easier for people to learn one strategy at a time if you're wanting to get a class. The thing that I have that incorporates everything that I do is going to be my mastery program. So it's going to be the mentorship and it's going to be the mastery program. So that's going to be this right here, which is going to be basically once a month live trading with me, trade alerts, weekly watch list, newsletter, and all of that good stuff. But it's not going to be a class. It's going to be like a once a month live trade. And I mean, really, it's hard because what incorporates everything I do, the combination of everything I do is John, Henry, Carolyn, Neil. And so learning from, number one, learning from these people. Number two, yes, I mean, I have put together strategies that kind of incorporate all of that. I wish there was a one-stop shop, but really, this presentation that I put together tonight. It was really difficult for me to put together something that covered so many strategies. But this is really kind of what I have put together tonight. It's the explanation of where I started, where I'm at now, what I focused on, how I added and subtracted different things throughout my trading journey. And that's kind of how you can see it flow over time. Now, if you want to go back and if you want to look at the presentation and say, okay, well, what are these different strategies? Then these are the ones that I talk about in my classes. And also, I mean, everything is combined at the mentorship. Awesome. Yes, we'll look forward to having you there. That'll be great, Jerry. There's a lot of shorthand lingo to learn. Does it take time, or is there a good reference shorthand to describe a trade? It definitely takes time to learn, but I mean, especially like this, I don't know, I speak fluent Spanish. I learned it from moving to Costa Rica. So I studied Spanish in school. And then it's so funny, people will always, nobody ever knows that I speak Spanish. And so, I'm pretty, I don't look like somebody who would speak Spanish. So it happens all the time that somebody will be saying something about me or whatever, and then I can turn around and say something in perfect Spanish, right? Which is an amazing skill, but it was something that was learned because I immersed myself. I immersed myself in the culture, in the language, and this is exactly how it was with trading. So I kind of compare learning Spanish to learning trading because I didn't know anything about Spanish. I also didn't know anything about trading. And these are two different things that I was able to learn over time by just kind of immersing myself in the situation. So, I mean, it definitely takes time and it's definitely not easy. But the more that you can kind of do it, the more that you can kind of put together at once and digest it, I think it goes a lot faster, or at least that was my experience. All right. Yes, you just signed up as well. That's excellent. I'm looking forward to having you in Austin. All right. So I'm really looking forward to it. You're going to sign up too. That's great. You're going to sign up 2 pair. Awesome. You're in too. Wow, that's amazing. Okay, that's awesome. Wow, I'm really excited. I'm glad that you all are going to get to meet each other. Um, Given your journey, what's the course that you would recommend for someone who struggled for 5 years, treading water, thankfully not losing much? Say courses would put them on the path to success. So, I have a survey actually. If you want to email me, I can give it to you, and that will help me identify which one is the best for you, because I do like some coaching, but I'm happy to just send it to you if you want. It's just basically like a 10 question questionnaire, and that'll kind of help me answer the question, because the thing is that everybody is different. And so, what works for me might not be what works for someone else. And so it's kind of just getting to the point where you're trying to figure out like what works for you. For me personally, I think the psychology is very important. Henry and John are both just absolutely critical about teaching these type of skills. You can just email me at Danielle at simplertrading.com and I'll send it to you. But definitely psychology is really important, but it's just I can't even it's hard for me to even explain knowing them as well as I know them. It's difficult for me to explain it without just kind of seeing them and the way that they manage things and the way they do things. And it's that kind of piece that they bring that teaches you how to manage your trades, and manage your psychology. And that's something that I'm learning from them still every single day. So just being around people who are able to do that, teaching those type of skills, I think are pretty important. You have my short interest program. Does it work in tandem with this? Yes. So short interest is one of, basically one of the many setups that I trade. So if you could, let's see if I can go find where that slide was. I'll just go right back to it, see if I can find it. But basically, the way that trading works is there are different setups at different moments in time in the market. So you're going to have moments in time where high short interest is on fire. Right now, high short interest is just absolutely kind of like what takes the cake. And the reason for that is because the stock market is up at a brand new all-time high again. And so at those levels, that is typically where shorts are going to get squeezed and there's going to be short covering. So space was just absolutely phenomenal. I mean, I can't really even ask for anything better than that. And there's a variety of different examples from those of you that just said you were in the class. But basically, the way that the mentorship works and the way that simpler trading works, which is something, it's actually really funny because this is how I ended up working here, because I was a teacher, right? And I was putting everything together and I was trying to combine John and Henry and Neil and Carolyn and Raghee. And what I had noticed was that different traders, they do similar types of things, but they're not the same. But the key thing that they all do is that you have different strategies for different conditions. Now, for example, right now, high short interest is working really well. Well, guess what? When the market pulls back, there's going to be something else that's going to work great, which is Fibonacci. Fibonacci is something that me, Henry, John, Carolyn, we all use. And when the market pulls back, that's what we're going to use. But the key here is that different traders have different strategies that they use in different market conditions. And so when you kind of bring everyone together in a room, the best thing that comes about is the collaboration. Because, for example, we all are doing something that's working, but we might do it in different ways. So John might come in and he might say, hey, I'm going to start buying the highs right here. And this is my favorite example because it happens all the time. And Henry will say, well, no, I'm going to wait until there's a pullback because it's going to be a more conservative entry. And I might say, well, maybe I'll add a little bit here. And if it really takes off, then I'll add more. And so when you have a crowd of people and you have the three of us all sitting there and deliberating it and talking about what we're doing and why, then you have 50 people that are watching that say, you know what, I actually really resonate with what John's doing. I would love to buy this explosion through the highs. Or they say, nope, you know what, I'm going to do it in a Henry fashion and I'm going to wait for a pullback because I'm actually more conservative. Or maybe you'll be like me and say, well, I'm actually just going to add a small position here at the highs and I'm going to do it with a lotto butterfly. And so that is kind of what the mentorship is about, because a class, when I'm bringing forth a class, I'm telling you exactly how I do it and why I do it. And when we have something that's more a collaborative event, it's different ways of looking at the same thing. So short interest may very well be something that is important at that point in time. The mentorship is not until April. So we don't know what's going to be happening in the market at that time. The last time that we had a mentorship, it was right in here. It was right in November. And it was actually during this time that I'm pretty sure, see if we can remember exactly when it was. It's in October, November. But from what I remember, the market was pulling back hard during the last mentorship. So the focus of that mentorship was, hey, guess what? What do we do when the market's completely rolling over and dying? So it does depend based on the market condition. But based on the market condition, the idea is that we have our trading team there and we're all handling it together. If that made sense. Are you exiting space before earnings? Is John still holding a position? I do not know what John is doing. I have had a pretty substantial position on space. Today, I unloaded almost all of it. I still have, I think, 3 contracts left. But I did unload most of it on this move. So, I mean, the majority of this move has been throughout here. This was like a, the second gift that was just absolutely amazing. And I do think that space still goes higher, but the entire point with high short interest is that you trade it until it loses momentum, and it did start losing momentum. So I can see after hours it's actually trading higher, which is amazing. But I did unload the majority of my position. Oh, John had an iron condor on it, right? I did actually add a another butterfly on Tesla though. So Tesla's high short interest too. So I mean a lot of this kind of goes hand in hand. I mean, we have high short interest, we have a squeeze, we have a Fibonacci target. It's really just kind of like a collaborative thing. You made over $15,000 on space and you're so thankful. That is amazing, Rebecca. I'm so happy for you. So, I mean, as far as exiting it before earnings, I don't know. For these type of things, I just kind of take it day by day. Um, but I did take off most of my position and take profits and everything else. If we get more of a squeeze, I will definitely add more. But with a move like today, when it's up 30%, I mean, you just the amount, there's no way that you can just look at that and say, "Oh, I'm just going to hold it till tomorrow." I mean, no, you have to take a gift when a gift is given to you. So I did take most of it off, but I would love nothing more to add to it. All right, so I think that I answered pretty much all of the questions. Is the psychology beyond trading in the zone? Yes. With respect to your squeeze course and trading long calls, would you recommend it to someone looking to swing trade and someone that has a full-time job during the day and would need to place contingency orders at night? Yes, you can definitely trade the squeeze even if you're working full-time. I mean, I know that I kind of went through the story. But my first 2 years when I was trading, I mean, I had a newborn, number one, so I was kind of tied up with that. And then I also had 2 different very low paying photography jobs that I had to manage. And I did trade with the squeeze. It just depends on kind of what your job is like. So some people have jobs where they can access their phone during the day, or you can go online during lunch, or maybe during the open or during the close. If you're completely out of the market, it makes it very difficult. But if you can, at the minimum, have access to your platform and your phone, then yeah, you can definitely do it, especially if you want to trade longer dated stuff. I mean, you can trade the squeeze on a weekly chart versus a daily chart. Some of the stuff I do, I'm in the morning, I'm out the next day. But if you're working full time, maybe you can't do that, but you can do it on a longer time frame. Awesome. You're signed up too. That's great. I wonder, do we even have any more? How many more of these? How many more of these do we have left on the VIP? See if I can get an answer from somebody, but I'm pretty sure with all the people who said they were coming, we probably only have a couple more left. 5 spots. 5 spots left. There are so many alerts on the app when you're planning to organize your by stock symbol or trader. That's coming soon, but you can also do it in the search box in the desktop platform. How many hours per day do you need to trade, watch the markets to be effective? I think you can do it just by doing the open and close. I mean, I honestly, my life is so busy now. I used to be able to trade 6.5 hours a day, but now, I mean, I'm going back and forth to CNBC. I'm getting ready. I'm doing classes. I'm doing all this kind of thing. So I don't get to trade 6.5 hours like I used to. Usually I'm trading maybe 2 hours, maybe 3 hours. When I have a class, a little bit more. What's the maximum number of charts you can have before toss starts to slow down? That is completely dependent on the type of computer you have. I personally can run, I don't know, I mean, I'll have like 12 or 15. But my husband also built me an amazing computer. So it really depends what kind of computer you have. All right, so I think that I answered all the questions. I'm super excited. Seems like a lot of people are coming out for the mentorship. If you have any remaining questions about, something that involves me, you can email me directly. If you have a question about the actual event and something like that, please email support@simplertrading.com because they are the best people to help you with this. But I really appreciate all of you joining me here tonight for this presentation. It's definitely a little bit different than the presentations that I normally do. I hope that I have helped you in somewhat, that you've gained some tidbits that you can take with you and improve your trading, because that is why I'm here. And beyond that, I'll see you in the next one.